We are we are apparently live. Good morning, everyone. This is episode 140. We're about to go. It's even though you can just see myself, Chill, and Red, we do actually have another virtual guest who you will meet during the Sarlacc Digest. Someone by the name of Aita, friend of Laurie M. Now, the way this works is Red did a pre-recorded segment with her, which we will play during this recording. It's broken up into about 6 or 7 or 8 little chunks, each a couple of minutes long. We'll play them, we will comment, we'll move on. That's the Warzone 101 section in our digest. So before that, it'll just be the three of us. So that's how it's going to work. Alright, let me tweet this.
Turning off AC.
Alright, we'll be starting momentarily. Chill, anything you want to go over?
Just got to get my Audacity rolling.
Okay.
Set.
I think there was just emails from Sparrow I wanted to read, but otherwise, back to you.
Test. Okay, that looks good.
Alright, just making sure. It's going to be a bit painful to go through, but alright. So that was on live. Check that. Which forum are you? Yep. Alright. Whoa. Right, just quick sound test. It's not too loud now, is it? Or is it?
You? No.
Sounds good.
Alright. Just noticed Audacity had gone.
How do I compare to Chill?
Good. Yeah, all our audio is being leveled very nicely. I can see it moving.
Which also, just as an FYI, when I do these interviews, I've decided to I run a second with my OBS streaming where I just stream to a file, just in case the Skype one ever bugs.
That's a great idea, actually. Does
I
that
just get
record
nervous.
input and output to separate streams?
No. So the Skype would be preferable, but if you ever run into a track that is bugged for whatever reason, you've got something.
Okay, that's great.
And my train showed up, I noticed, too.
Inevitably. It's a signature thing with you.
I know, right?
Alright. Do you have Skype? Do you have Audacity rolling, Red?
Yes, sir.
What about you, Red?
I do.
It's going to be one of those days, isn't it, Chill?
Mm-hmm.
You
I
good?
do.
Alright. Any reason not to get this show on the road?
I think we're good.
Alright, let's do it.
Do it.
Okay, going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast, the podcast that is alive and in perfect hibernation. This is episode 140, being recorded on Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. I'm your host, Chill, and with me is my co-host, Tio. Hi, Tio.
Hey, guys.
And with us today is Red. So, Red, what'd you do this week?
PvP. I did have my birthday weekend, so I definitely took time off for the weekend and went out and hung out with friends and whatnot. I did want to shout out to Hip. I don't know if he actually listens to the show or not, but I was really, really happy because he actually sent me on G Plus a happy birthday wish, and it was great to hear from him.
Oh, that's cool.
I did PvP like I normally have been, and of course, I'm loving it. PvP is just so much more fun. The better my gear gets, the more fun it becomes because my survivability is going up. But I also just started doing some achievement hunting in the meantime, and I went ahead and I have to do that kill count, right, for Tatooine, kill X number of non-players. But at the same time, I've got to kill players. So what I've been doing is I've been sitting down in Tatooine right by the first place where the imps land, and they have to run out and do their quests. And I just
Ah.
walk back and forth in front of that doorway. And whenever some lobby comes walking out, I run by, stock strike them in the face. They fall down dead, and I run over and kill some more mobs. Run back. Usually they spawn and come back out, so I hit them again. I killed 100 people this week. It was a lot of fun, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that really hate me right now. But I've got like another 1,000 NPCs I've got to kill, so I figure I might as well do that at the same time.
Right. Did you end up getting any like PvP guilds down, being called down on your head or anything?
There have been a few times, and like I thought I was being clever because I would, I'd get 3 or 4 of them and they'd stomp my head, so I'd, hide, mount up, and then I'd run to the next typical imp city where the next fly point is, and I run through the city, and then drop aggro, and then just stand there and run around out there, and then I'd kill like 2 or 3. Yeah, they were, they weren't fooled. Rather than 3 showing up, it was 6, and I was like, okay, gotta take a break. But definitely, no, it's a lot of fun. So I have started doing my achievement hunting again. I want to get my numbers up and running. I have 7 planets that are at 100% now, which feels really good.
Wow.
But I'm definitely getting slowed down on, the PvP achievement counts. And what's interesting, I'm sure not everybody's aware, but there are achievements for killing a certain number of players, and the lower the planet level, it seems the lower the overall number. But the other thing that they have you do is you actually have to kill city guards a certain number of times, and you have to do it from both factions.
Yikes.
Which recently they upgraded all of the city guards to be level 55s, so it's not something you can just sit and do with a companion anymore. You actually need somebody to help you out. So, but since I've been doing the achievements, I realized I hadn't gotten the endurance datacron on my fighter pilot, who's now my PvPer. So I did want to give another shout out to Kuze, who's done all of those wonderful videos for datacron hunting and everything, and it's Kuze. Definitely look his stuff up. He's got his guides just on how to do platforming in the game. If you need tips on just how to do better, not just how to get the datacron, but how to even jump better, his videos are excellent. And so when I went to do the endurance one, I got it first try. I watched his video, and especially at the one part where it's really tricky, I looked at how he, set his camera angle up and exactly the direction that he jumped to make this wicked challenging jump.
Which endurance one?
On Makeb, the +10.
Oh, okay. That is a tricky one.
Yeah, made that jump first try, so I was real glad to have his name in the back of my head. Outside of that, the only other thing I did want to return to was I know we had, last week we mentioned concerning the casino, Soter Miner had put out that it would be about 15 hours of clicking with the 6-second cast that he had mined. The people that have been testing on the test server have figured out that you can actually, the animation
We're going to go through this in detail later. So
Are we? Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Then that's it. That's my week.
All right, Tio, how about your week?
All right, let's start with raiding on day 1. We cleared the first 3 encounters in hard mode Dread Fortress in record time. It was like 30 minutes. We just blew through it. And then after another hour, we finally got Corruptor Zero down for the first time.
Hard mode Corruptor Zero.
Yes. We just stuck with our strategy.
Congrats.
Yep, thank you. Which, as you know, the nightmare mechanic of the gold ads still not being CCable remains, and there's still no indication that it's ever going to get fixed. So whatever, we decided to just run with it. Yeah, we just got it done. So that was great. We finished up there on day 2. Now, Bill, the financial guru you've heard before, and one of our tanks, is going to be away next week. So what I did was switch to my Guardian. He switched to his Healing Sage, and we just did some practice runs with me tanking Chill, who's our other tank, more or less let me main tank. And so we just did some story mode stuff. We just did a quick 4 or 5 just story mode in Dread Palace, We hadn't been through there in a little while.
Yep.
Just got the weekly done, 3 of 8 in Scum and Villainy story, and then we finished up with story Tomorrow's Courtyard. So yeah, it was good to be back on the Guardian and actually doing some raid content. It's been a while since I've done any raiding with him. So this week, hopefully, he won't do too badly. What else? I did spend a couple of hours on the PTS gambling, but I'll talk more about that later. I did want to mention just a tip. If you ever want to see your frame rate, we probably mentioned this before, but it would have been a long time ago.
Yeah.
Shift Control F to bring it up, and the same to get rid of it. Shift Control F. Now you'll see 2 numbers, the actual current frame rate and a number in brackets, which is the average. It's unclear just where they take that average over what period. Maybe it's the last minute, last 30 seconds, who knows, but that will tell you your frame rate, frames per second.
Yep. It appears
so if you just want to test your
little bitty
performance.
font in the lower left.
Right. And, yesterday we did do some KDY, just chilling. Me did a run through with some pugs, went very smoothly.
Right.
And otherwise I've been leveling my shadow on Terrace, which isn't actually too bad this time. I was surprised. I'm actually only going to do just the story content and probably the world arc, the main world series, and just ignore all other missions on the place.
Right.
But yeah, that's on, obviously, Republic side, Terrace. Anyway, that's my week. Over to you, Chill.
All right. First, a shout out to the chat room. We've got Ghost Mirror here, Nepthan, Pez, Anuin, Ben_B55, and Ferris Terran all here. So hi, everyone. I was actually gone all weekend. I was up in Seattle with visiting my sister and her family, and so yeah, other than the stuff I did with UTO, actually it was pretty light. I did get to work on Voss some on my, I guess 47 level. Yes, level 47, I believe. Sage, and got almost all the way through that. But I also did the quest chain to get the endurance datacron, the one where you have to go through that yellow instance. Yeah. Everything's golden glowing. So yeah, did that again. Yeah, so it was good to get that out of the way. I think I have one section of the planet left to go, something like that. So that won't take too long, and I'll be done with Voss and off to other wonderful things. So also one more level and I'll be able to start my McKeb chain and get that nice whatever it is 136 main hand. That'll be nice too. All right, so that was pretty quick. So off to the tip of the week, and we have 4 of them this week. So let me start off with one from Hagu Pali. Hagu Pali writes in, several podcasts ago you discussed deciding on the market value of a cartel coin. For example, 1,000 credits per coin. The slot machine chips in the upcoming summer festival is a reminder that one should do that for unranked comms as well. 80 war zones becomes 2 planetary comms, which becomes a blue mod, which you can sell for about 16,000 credits. So, one war zone comm is about 200 credits. You see a lot of guides recommending buying med packs with excess Warzone comms, but most people sell a stack of meds for well under 200,000, so that does not seem optimal to me. And much worse, the PTS currently shows that you can buy a chip for 1,000 credits or 100 Warzone, which values a Warzone at 10 credits. What would you rather have for 400 Warzone? 4 times 1,000 chips or 5 times 16,000 mods? So there you go.
Yeah, indeed. It's an interesting way that they've priced the chips. Of course, that's only means anything if you want to buy the smuggler's chips, which you cannot then use to convert into anything except using the slot machines, which we'll talk about later.
And you'll have
All
to
right,
do a little bit of research, find out which mods are selling the best that you can actually get with the planetary comms, because not all of them are available that way, but some are. And yeah, that seems like a reasonably good way to spend your time and turn what could be a really low amount of credits into a decent amount.
Indeed. All right, our second tip is from our guildmate Cal. Can't be bothered with the 40-minute turnaround on the Tatooine balloon ride? Why not make friends with a Commando or Merc? Then you can duel at the back of the Sandcrawler and push you up to the top. You can do it with any class that has a push, but Commando Mercs have by far the best.
Right, it just pushes a little further. Yeah. And some, like I believe, the Gunslingers, you can actually talent into bigger pushbacks, so that might be nice too.
I haven't tested it, but I thought that the Gunslinger one was a straight shove away from the Gunslinger, whereas the Trooper one actually can shove you up into the air.
It is more angled up in the air. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But even the Gunslinger one's not straight back.
It isn't? Okay.
No, and it's pretty far, so there's a little bit of a hill near that corner of the Sandcrawler. I'm not sure how good a luck you'd have, but you should be able to get it.
Okay.
All right. Third tip from Anuin. My tip of the week goes out to crafters or those who plan on getting into crafting. Be sure to grab the 3 legacy perks for crafting. 3% crit chance when making an item doesn't seem like a whole lot in the beginning, but you can also get a legacy wide perk for a vendor that sells a droid part for crafting as well. So once you get the right companions, you max their affection, and you can get up to a 30% crit chance when you craft. When making an advanced 34 mod, proccing a second one for free will make it all worthwhile. Some pretty nice guides can be found on the SWTOR forums as well, when it comes to min-maxing which companions go best with which crafts and so on. And some may be pretty out of date, but mostly they seem to still apply to today's crafting.
Okay, and our last tip is from our guildmate and fellow raider Kuzay.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Hello, Ootinians. My tip of the week is to save you millions. You're welcome. During the Festival of Splendor event, do not waste your credits or cartel certificates on the Kingpin's casino chips. When using the lower-cost Smuggler's casino chips, you have a chance to win the higher-cost Kingpin's casino chips. I will go into more detail in a special Kuzay's Corner later, which we'll do during the news. But basically, I spent 400,000 credits on the Smuggler's casino chips and received 2.7 million worth of Kingpin chips in return. Hopefully BioWare doesn't change anything and we can all save some creds. Yes, I hope I win a hashtag Hung Jawa."
Awesome. Now, yeah, his last sentence does make a lot of sense. It'll have to be retested when it's live.
Oh, for sure. And I had pretty much come to exactly the same conclusion myself in my experimentation on the PTS, but we'll talk about that shortly.
Okay. By random allotment, the winner was Hagu Pally. So congratulations, Hagu Pally. You're the winner of one of the, what's the exact name of that thing? The M8R3 pet codes, courtesy of BioWare, and one of the latest cartel market packs provided by this podcast. If you have a tip of the week, please send it to OotiniCast@gmail.com. We record on Wednesdays. And that will bring us to the holofeed. Tio?
Alright, firstly, let's talk about Game Update 2.7.2, which was deployed on Tuesday. Exactly on schedule. We are now 6 weeks out from Game Update 2.7. There's another 3 weeks until we get Game Update 2.8. So, in 2.7.2, there wasn't much at all. In fact, there were a few exploit fixes, but that's pretty much it. Preferred players no longer have a chat restriction, as intended, presumably referring to general chat, where they could only talk every 30 seconds or whatever it was.
Okay.
I haven't really played with my preferred character for a while, or preferred account, so I haven't really played with that. Emotes and moods can now be unlocked in collections. Actually, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. Because there's a few that I have on one character or another, but that I like but don't use because it's buried on a character somewhere.
Right. That's excellent.
Do we have any idea what the cost is to globally unlock that?
Nope.
Okay.
Now, in terms of flashpoints and operations, it looks like a few fixes for Dread Fortress. For example, Gate Commander Draxus, that's the second guy in Dread Fortress, can no can no longer be summoned and defeated multiple times per lockout.
Huh.
That's kind of disturbing that was possible. And also fixed an issue where Nephra, the first boss in Dread Fortress, would not attack players standing in certain areas of her room. Now, there are a couple of threads about this on the official forums. It seems that what all of the progression guilds, apparently, were doing was, because you could do this and because you could do some fancy stuff with swapping people in and out of raid groups, they were gearing up their progression teams with all of their nightmare level of implants, which drops off Nephra, and I think you can also get an offhand and some other random piece of stuff.
Right.
And so they were just doing this over and over and over again. You could more or less two-man Nephra, or even if you got someone who can cleanse, just solo Nephra, because you could stand in a certain place where nothing would affect you. Yes, so that was a bit unfortunate. It could explain why people got through the content, at least the end boss, a little quicker than they would have otherwise, because they were able to get a lot more gear than they probably should have been able to get in that first few days. This issue did apparently exist on the PTS, but was not fixed. I guess they were hoping that... Well, I don't know what they were hoping.
That people would take advantage of it? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's the analogy with the bolster bug pre 2.7 is clear, where if there is an advantage which people need if other people are doing it and you care about getting there first, if you're a progression raider, then of course you're going to take advantage of it, even if it is technically and absolutely an exploit.
You know, somebody in the chat room just gave me an idea. It should still be fairly easy to pull it off if you slash stuck and release from area before the kill goes in. You're still not going to get credit for that kill, and only the two people in there are going to get the credit.
That's what they were doing, yes.
Oh, they were doing slash stuck to do it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that was actually mentioned in the thread. Alright. Now, a few other little bits and pieces, but yeah, pretty small patch. The impression I get is BioWare is really, really focused and extremely busy preparing for both Strongholds and the new X-Pack. So things have been a bit quiet of late, and from what I've been told, that's why. But anyway, also just an issue that has come with 2.7.2, Whirlwind in PvP. If you use the crowd control Whirlwind, which is what Sorks and Sages can do, it may be called something different on one side. Anyway, if that particular player that you Whirlwind is guarded and you do damage to the tank, that will break the Whirlwind. So this is a bug. There was actually a change made back in Game Update 2.0 to all of the guards where damage done to the tank didn't break someone that you were guarding. The damage wasn't propagated to them in terms of crowd control. But yeah. So
well, except I think that was actually tied into if the tank was CC'd, because the damage to the person that was being guarded is being filtered to the tank. That was breaking the tank CC.
Right.
So, but this sounds like it's going in the opposite direction.
Unless I misunderstood it. Let me
You might have misunderstood, because it says a blinded guarder will no longer be broken out of the blind from damage dealt to the guarded target. Yeah, so the tank was being broken out of mezzes, basically, by damage that he was receiving by guarding a target.
Alright, let me explain that again, because otherwise it's going to be really confusing. Alright, so there is also currently a bug with the crowd control effect Whirlwind, where if you CC a tank who is guarding someone else, so you apply Whirlwind to the tank, if you then do damage to the player that the tank was guarding, the damage that was basically fed back to the tank via the guard is breaking the Whirlwind. That should not happen, and that particular change was made back in Game Update 2.0. Did I get it right that time?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yep. And Neptune let us know in chat that the other side's version of Whirlwind is called Force Lift.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Okay, and so it sounds like this specific ability, for whatever reason, the same problem has resurfaced.
Yeah.
Because I would assume if it were universal, people would be noticing this on, blinded from flash grenade or, any of the other
Saps,
in combat mezzes.
any mez that can be broken on damage, yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Moving on. There was in a PvP thread about the ELO system, which is what's used in ranked PvP as part of the matchmaking system. A particular person was complaining that it just didn't seem to be matching appropriately, and Alex Monty responded saying the particular evidence given really didn't indicate there was a problem, it just wasn't enough. But as he, in his own words, the system is complex and we, the devs, can't just dust off our hands and say, all is well. Jolly good job, old chaps. We'll take a look at your match history and see if anything stands out that shows us that something is up with the rating system. So basically, the takeaway from that is, yeah, they're willing to look at it. If you've got a clear indication that something is wrong in terms of the people you're being matched with and or against, it is worth trying to note down whatever you can that would help and posting it on the forums so that they can potentially investigate it.
Right. And that they only have kind of a vague idea of what British slang is like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stumbled over that because, wait a second, that's not right.
It's the difficulty is, and I can the original post on this was a guy who had two different characters that had been playing ranked with, and he had one character that was like 68 wins and 48 losses, but he was just over 1,200, and he had another one that had a similar win-loss ratio but was over 1,500.
Yeah.
The problem is that with an ELO system,
that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's not conclusive. If the one character's the time that you're queuing is always when all the lower ELO people are queuing, you're not going to get as many points. And when you lose, you're actually going to lose more points.
Right.
So, the math is really complicated, and I could see an easy example of how this might come about, and that really is lame to be that guy.
But they are willing to look at it, so if you think you have an issue, then let them know.
It's worth tracking, at least, when you start to see perhaps a string of you're getting lots of, points for winning and not losing many points when losing, or vice versa, and you see that as a pattern, you might even want to take screenshots of the change per round, because that is displayed on the scoreboard at the end. And maybe even start paying attention to names, and for yourself, you can look that up on the leaderboards and see, did I get a tiny amount, but these guys are all ranked 1,400? Or, oh, wow, yeah, these guys are all ranked 800. No wonder I barely got any points out of it.
Right. Okay, moving on. The PTS. PTS has been updated with the second update, which you can now play around with. A few things that they've added. There's a new option in the Preferences Graphics tab, Shadow Map. They've added options for Shadow Map Cascades and Shadow Map Resolution, both of which you can tweak and will make shadows better, but may negatively impact your performance.
Right.
If your system can handle it, by all means, max it up. And
I'm really excited for this, honestly.
Good.
Every little graphic change that they've made in the game so far, even though it sounds trivial, every time I've increased it because my computer can handle it, it's always been really noticeable. It's so neat to see these graphics keep improving.
If only they upgraded to DirectX 11, that would be fantastic. But
wouldn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, but you're right. It is always getting better whenever they tweak some of this stuff. Now, there's a bunch more class and combat changes. Again, we are not going to touch this until it's finalized for 2.8. Then we'll just go through it in detail. But one I do want to mention, the activation time for Phase Walk. has been reduced to half a second, down from 1.5 seconds, and the duration that it'll stay up has been increased to 5 minutes. Currently, it's only 2 minutes. So they're just trying to add, the utility, trying to add the utility to phase walk that they had mentioned previously they were hoping to do. So these are steps in that direction.
Yeah, that's really nice. One of the difficulties of using it is the cast time, especially once you're in combat in PvE. And in PvP, it'll also be nice not to have to cast for a full 1.5 seconds. That is a long time to be doing anything that's not direct damage in PvP. Yeah. So, and the maximum duration will be nice as well. I won't have to refresh the circle as much for certain fights, and yeah. And I don't think it'll break anything in PvP. I mean, if people know your circle's there, they'll just keep knowing it's there for a bit longer. So, yeah.
Now, what they've also added is a lockbox that you can purchase for 600 Warzone comms that will contain a random Jawa scrap item. Now, these are the same Jawa scraps that we mentioned last week that have been added to the cutter packs and can be exchanged for specific crafting materials. So now you can get them for Warzone comms as well as real money or credits in the cutter packs. So that's kind of cool. This is all coming in 2.8, of course. And finally, we should talk about the actual event, because they have actually added it, and it is now all there. The whole Festival of Splendor.
Can I try this? Since I'm sick, my voice will do it. Suvada. That's my
one
version.
Very good. Very good. All right, so we actually have a Kuze's Corner, which I'll read most of. I've spent quite a bit of time on the PTS as well, just learning the ins and outs of this. So we'll start with Kuze, and then I'll just elaborate on what Kuze didn't actually cover. He says, "Get ready, kiddies. It's time to head back to Chuck E. Cheese's in the new event, the Festival of Splendor. You get to spend credits on tokens that you turn around and use in a machine. This machine has a possibility to reward you with tickets. You then can trade those tickets in for awesome prizes like a whistle or maybe a yo-yo. Joking aside, I really like the idea of the Festival of Splendor event and hope that it is an indication of things to come. Even though the slot machines lack any cool animation or skill requirement, I still hope it's BioWare's way of testing the waters for other minigames." Yeah, well, fingers crossed on that. A brief overview of the event. A breadcrumb quest on the fleet will lead you to a casino on Nar Shaddaa. And you can actually see the casinos. They're just massive floating things. At least from the Republic side, on the landing platform where the spaceport is. So you get out of your ship, you run outside, where you would normally pick up the speeder. You can actually see the two big floating casinos, and they are faction specific. So and the flight point to it is right there, so you can just fly straight to it. You don't have to go somewhere else and take a different route, so it's easy to get to. I think it's the star cluster for the pub side at least. As far as I can tell, they're just mirrors of each other, so it's not like one is different in any way. Anyway, back to Kuze. You will get 5 Smuggler's Casino chips for completing that initial breadcrumb mission. Inside the casino is just one big open area. You will find 2 types of vendors. The casino cashier, and there are lots of these guys all over the place, actually near each bank machine. And the casino prize vendor. I only found one of him. He's sitting at the back along with Garada and other various famous personages on a platform at the back. It's kind of cool. You can also see the prizes, which you can get from the vendor on Dolphy. We have mentioned her post last week. And they are purchased using a currency called golden certificates, which appear as actual physical items in your inventory, your bag. Alright, so the casino cashier, the one that there's lots of, they sell 2 items. Firstly, the Kingpin's casino chip, which you can purchase for either 50,000 credits or one cartel market certificate. Now, the cartel market certificates are the things that you can get from cartel packs. In fact, that's the only place you can get them. Currently, they're used to exchange for particular items that used to be in the packs that aren't available anymore, and you need a certain reputation with the cartel, whatever it is, reputation to be able to purchase those. But so here's another use for your cartel market certificates. And I guess it's a way of translating real money directly into the casino chips. Take that as you will. Now, the other type of thing the casino cashier sells are smugglers' casino chips. And they will cost either 1,000 credits or 100 Warzone comms. Yes, Warzone comms. Not any other type of comms, which would have been kind of cool, but oh well. Now, that was mentioned earlier in a tip, actually. So, the Kuzo goes on. The Kingpin's casino chips are used in the Kingpin's bounty slot machines, and the Smuggler's casino chips are used in the Smuggler's luck slot machines. Now, what you'll see when you actually walk in there is rows of machines. There's several banks in which there are back-to-back a set of 12, and there are 3 of these, of the Kingpin's bounty, or as I think of them, the purple ones. Now, these are the ones that require the Kingpin's, the expensive casino smugglers chips to use.
Right.
The other type of machines are the blue ones, the smugglers bounty machines. There are 48 of those total. They're in rows in little banks of 4, back-to-back. So a total of 48 of the blue ones, the cheap ones, Smuggler's Bounty, and there are a total of 36 of the Kingpin's Bounty machines. So lots and lots. Okay, back to Kuze. Just get back where it was. Alright, so for the blue machines, the Smuggler's Luck machines, the prizes in order of rarity are a casino chip, as in you get one back that you actually put in. The Feeling Lucky buff, which is a 2-minute buff that increases the chance to win on Kingpin's Bounty slot machines. It lasts until you either win on the Kingpin's Bounty machine or you leave Nar Shaddaa, and 2 minutes duration. Whichever comes first. Now, it's worth noting the Feeling Lucky buff has absolutely no effect with the cheap blue machines.
Right.
You can probably see where this is going. Also, from the blue machines, you can win a Kingpin's Casino chip. And that was Kuzo's tip from earlier, because that's the currency for the purple expensive machines. And you can win a golden certificate, which is the currency to get stuff from the vendor, but that's really unlikely from the blue machines. All right, so blue machines, that's what you can get. From the purple machines, the Kingpin's Bounty prizes, you can actually win another Kingpin's Casino chip, which will let you keep playing on those ones. A golden certificate, which is a lot more likely than it is on the blue machines. But you can also get the Vectron Magnus mount, which is the car. You can also get with, I think it's 15 golden certificates. It's a fair number. Or the Rancor. Now, I played for quite a while, probably longer than I should have, and spent maybe 10 million credits on Kingpin Bounty. I spent 10 million credits on the Kingpin's Casino chips. This is on the PTS, so it doesn't matter. You just copy characters over, got lots of money, and it's an infinite supply. And at least after I started playing initially, I made sure I did not touch the Kingpin's machines, the purple machines, unless I had the Feeling Lucky buff.
Right.
I won 3 of the Vectron Magnus mounts. I did not win a Rancor, sadly.
Now, are the mounts bound to your legacy or whatever, or are they not bound, or how do you know?
The mounts were bound to legacy. Certainly the car was. I don't know about the Rancor. I would assume it was too.
Okay, so getting more than one is nice, but
is okay.
Right.
Because then you can just move it around.
Send it to another character. Okay.
Yep.
Except that as soon as you learn it, it's gone from your bag, so you can't have it on more than one character.
Yeah, but he got
you can
3
win. Chill's saying you can win more than one, like I did, and then you
And
can
then
send it to
move
the
them
character.
over. Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how these legacy banks are going to work. It would be so awesome if you could actually copy some of your mounts to your own characters that way.
Not going to happen.
I know, but I want it.
Now, because I did some research in working out what the actual odds were of winning, and I might actually include that in our show notes, but the bottom line is, just remember, don't buy the Kingpin's casino chips and win them. Instead, you should win them using the Smuggler's casino chips.
It'll take a
So,
lot longer, but it ends up being much more efficient.
so remember, just play to get the chips for the expensive ones, 50,000 per chip, or and for the cheap ones, it's 1,000. Now, I found, and this is something, Red, you started to mention earlier. The way to actually do this is to actually use the machine. It is a single GCD to actually trigger it. The machine itself will actually take a while to then present the prize, but there is nothing to stop you then going to another machine and kicking it off. You just have to wait for the GCD to complete. And so Sweator Miner, Ben B were talking about this on Twitter. What you do is those rows of 4 I mentioned, you stand in front of one, you click it, you wait for the GCD while strafing to the one next to it, you click that one, next to it. By the time you get to the fourth one, you can then go straight back to the beginning and do it all over again. You can gamble extremely quickly by doing this. There's more or less no limit. My client did crash a couple of times, but I think something got a little confused. But anyway, that certainly works. You will receive back a lot of the blue Smuggler's chips for the blue machines. So you'll find you have to... I just bought a stack of 99, and I only had to replenish it maybe twice, and I was hitting those machines pretty hard. You get back that many coins. That many of the chips to actually keep on playing. So the way to do this, as Kuze said, you can farm the ones for the expensive machines just by continually playing this over and over again. You should never, ever, ever use the Kingpins. You should never use the purple machines, the Kingpin's machines, unless you have the Feeling Lucky buff. Right. So use the blue machines until you have the buff. Go to the big machines. Use up all of your Kingpin's coins, or until the Feeling Lucky buff wears off. Go back to the blue machines. It'll take you a while, but it's better than blowing millions and millions of credits on the Kingpin's bounty, on the Kingpin's chips. Yeah.
Nice.
Let me see. Red will be happy to know there are achievements. There are 9 of them. They're under events in the general tab, just like Life Day. Under the Festival of Splendor, they're worth 295 prestige points total. I did trigger a few of them, like you have to win a few things and play a certain number of times, that kind of thing, to actually get them.
Are there any for getting the actual prizes, or is it all just... There are, okay.
Including the mounts? Do you have to get one of the mounts? Do you have to get both of the mounts?
I think there was one for getting the Rancor from memory. But yeah.
Okay. So I'll be doing a lot of dailies up until this happens.
Now, the golden certificates, which you can get from the machines, mainly from the purple ones, the Kingpin's ones, the golden certificates are bound to legacy. So you can actually do this on multiple characters and then put them together and then spend them at the vendor. You can get the car from the speeder, the whatever it's called, from the vendor. You cannot get the Rancor. So the only way to get the Rancor is to keep playing the machines. Sweator Miner, we should mention, did do a bit of digging to find the actual probabilities of winning, and I may link to that post if you really want to know, but you probably don't. Given the chance of winning the Rancor is a bit unlikely, but clearly people have actually won it, so it is possible. Just got to do it. Anyway, that's pretty much it. This is all on the PTS now, though really it's a pretty simple mechanic. The animation for the actual machines is boring as hell. You just click it, and...
Does it actually show little reels or spinning or anything?
Nothing's shown as spinning. I think there's a light on top that goes red or green if you win or lose, and then there's like a round face, and depending on what you win, one of the quadrants will light up.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's it. Nothing more complex than that, unfortunately. But anyway, I'll admit it is a fantastic time waster if you're doing something else, like listening to a podcast or watching video or something like that. You could just do this mindlessly. Yeah, I'll give you my assessment. It's more fun than throwing snowballs. That was my takeaway from this.
Good. And you don't have to worry about somebody having a debuff.
Yeah, it did occur to me that what they could do is actually put a debuff on you when you've used a machine, and then it comes off once the machine is finally finished, or something really annoying like that, which would stop you doing 4 in a row. And let's hope they don't do that, because that would suck.
I will go ahead and say, because I've asked around a bit, and I know that personally I was having a lot of trouble understanding what the concern was about having this in the game. And the best 2 comments I've received are, one, a lot of the concern would be alleviated if there was at some point a weekly limit or something. Although I think that since this is a limited time event, that's partially addressed. The other side was really interesting, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but it ties in the fact that we already kind of have gambling in the game with the packs. You know, you can buy a pack, and you can keep buying pack after pack after pack after pack and not get the item you want, but spend your real money all day long.
It's worth noting on that, Red, that there is actually a limit in how much money you can spend purchasing stuff. It's come up before. They don't advertise it, but there is a limit on real money that can be spent through the website in terms of doing that.
Is there a flat limit, or is it like a monthly limit?
It was unclear. It seemed to be daily. This is purchasing cartel coins, obviously.
That's interesting. So there is a cartel coin limit. Yep. Presumably maybe the largest purchasable amount or something like that per day.
I think it was like $100 or something along those lines.
So that's interesting.
That's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's better than being unlimited.
Well, and the other thing that I don't know whether or not I agree with it, but the concern that is in it is that perhaps with this implementation, it's one step further. Not that someone that has an addictive personality or whatever shouldn't have some degree of responsibility in their own actions, but the fact that perhaps BioWare might be actively trying to capitalize off of those types of personalities.
Right.
In essence, seeking that out deliberately. That was the first time that somebody said something where it's like, oh, okay, I can understand somebody being concerned about that. I don't know that that's the case. I don't know if I agree with that, but at least that is one thing that I can actually see where someone's coming from.
That they're going after people with that personality type?
That their business model embraces pursuing those people.
No. That's just wrong on so many levels. It's just fundamentally unethical, and would get them in a whole lot of trouble. So
that's why I would really like somebody to do a blog post or something. Anybody that listens, I'd love to have someone point to me because it's more interesting to me the legal implications from region to region, because there are laws about these things, and there are laws about these things in games, and presumably BioWare has done their research, and this isn't going to violate any of those laws. But I'd love to know what those laws are and how they play out in practice for video games and stuff like that.
Oh, just one final note on the PTS. What Miner did mention that the machines do actually have an animation. He says the machines, it spins and the arrow/outer rim does spin. So there is something to look at.
Right.
All right, now.
And Red, I'm certainly no legal expert, but from what I have heard on just this in general, is that that's one of the reasons you can't turn around and take the cartel coins and turn them back into cash, is because it becomes a closed system where you can give money to BioWare but you can't take it out, and so that essentially keeps it from becoming a casino.
Right.
Because you can't make more money off of it than you put in.
Yeah, you can't earn real money. You can only turn it into their pretend currency.
Which, let's
Yeah.
be honest, even this implementation of what is a quote-unquote slot machine, it's really more like a carnival game. You buy tickets,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see if you win prizes, and that's really how it plays out.
Right.
All right, moving on. Just a quick note. We mentioned last week that BioWare was absolutely consistent, where they talked about their strategy of PvP versus PvE mounts. Specifically, the Rancor, when it was announced a couple of days after they announced the Tier 1 rewards for Season 1, they did actually post explicitly that the Rancor would subsequently be available as a drop from Nightmare Mode Dread Palace
Mm-hmm.
when that's released in 2.8, and it would be added to the cartel market sometime in the future. So the future is, well, coming soon. So again, absolutely consistent with their messaging all the way along. All right, and finally in the news, let's just quickly talk about the Community Cantina. It was held in Vancouver last week. Our listener Richard was actually in attendance, and he has done a blog post describing his experience. Now, it was apparently one of their smallest cantinas ever, due primarily to the fact that it was in Vancouver. He says he himself, as any Canadians he's met up with in the game, tend to be elsewhere. And so it was kind of weird to him that they did choose Vancouver as a venue. And he did talk to Musco about that. And as they said in the past, they do choose them based on where players are located. And it seems it may not have worked out too well this time. Anyway,
Right.
in
Well,
attendance were Eric Musco.
they've mentioned not too long ago that they do look at where the
Yeah,
gamers
that's what I
are
just
in order
said.
to figure out where it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's always the possibility though that people might be really into the game but just not into coming to real life events.
True
Or
enough.
just not in the
Whatever.
forums and stuff, not aware of it.
Yeah, or there could have been some sort of big event going on that they hadn't planned for. Like in competition, that would
Right.
have drawn eyeballs away from the community cantina.
Now, in addition to Eric Musco, there was art director Mark Howe and associate producer Andrew Horowitz. There was the usual Q&A with the usual mix of questions. Not too much came out of it. The whole thing about free-to-play players not being able to do certain things, like getting passes for ranked PvP, came up, and the standard answer was whenever they do anything like that, they're effectively devaluing the subscription, and they do want people to subscribe as well. So it's just a balance. So they want to be able to get people playing free-to-play with a reasonable experience, but the sub experience has still got to be good. But anyway, someone asked about them teasing new content, because it seems it's a bit frustrating, it seems, where they don't really tell us what's coming up. Andrew Horowitz responded that, in essence, whenever they tease anything, if they don't say much, people will then start developing really high expectations, and the reality will always be disappointing. So it really is, from their point of view, better to be absolutely consistent with their messaging, reflecting the reality of what they're going to build. So if they just are too vague, our imaginations will get carried away, and yeah,
Right.
so that's why they're careful. They're not deliberately starving us of information because they want to. It's just they're being sensible about it. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate, but people do tend to jump to conclusions. Now, that was a Q&A. There were a few more questions, of course. When Richard was walking around, he did hear and ask himself a few questions. The housing system came up again about the whole placing of items. And this response from Eric Musco, it was quoted on massively, and Richard emphasized this is not a literal rendition of what he actually said. But the implication is it's amazing. Whatever they've come up with is just really, really good in terms of placing whatever inside your galactic stronghold. And you seriously have to see it to believe it. And they have put a lot of thought, he says, into making it customizable, not disparaging any other games. And yeah, he reckons that Musco, being a fan of housing himself, players will not be disappointed. So again, or even that is sort of blowing it up, probably beyond what it actually is, but it does sound pretty good. Someone asked about, will we ever have something like guild tabards, which was something that you could purchase for your guild, from your guild, and they pick the symbol, and that would basically be something that you could all wear that was the same. And Eric says he can't confirm much, but he will say that if you're a fan of that sort of stuff, there is something coming up that will make you very happy. So some sort of guild-related something that we can display on our characters. Whatever. Legacy holocrons. This comes up every now and again. I think we've talked about it ourselves recently. And yeah, the answer is no, not going to happen. Just too hard.
Yeah.
And finally, how much, if anything, do the forums factor into what goes into the game or figuring out what the population wants? And some interesting stats from Eric on this, the official forums. 3% of players actually write in the official forums, and less than 10% even read them. So, yeah, it's such a small proportion of the population, just going with what those guys say, and there's no reason to believe it's a representative sample. And it's self-selected in terms of people who use forums as opposed to just being average players. Yeah, it's just one source of input is what it boils down to. And finally, I will mention that the next Community Cantina is on Thursday, 12 June in Los Angeles. And the next month is on Friday, 25 July, which will coincide with Comic-Con in San Diego. San Diego.
Yeah, there's no A,
And
Diego.
that's the news.
Okay. And I don't know if this will stay in the show, but Swotor Minor was typing that he can confirm something about guild insignias.
Excellent.
It'll be a guild insignia that you can put in your guild ship. By the way, I assume that holocrons are datacrons, and that was just incredibly misstated.
Either way,
Yeah.
people know what we meant.
Yep.
Okay.
I guarantee that means the datacrons. All right, on to the community corner. We'll start with the Utini Templars rating report. Is this one? Who's this one from? It's from.
Oh, it's from Greg.
It's
Sorry,
from Greg.
6 at the bottom. Yeah.
All right. Greg writes, hey guys, since Cal's had to take a hiatus from raiding, he's tasked me with providing the raid report and also organizing the Templars raids. My rise to power is almost complete. Anyway, on with the important stuff. Wednesday night, we ran a full clear Dread Fortress to try to help some people gear up gear up a little with set bonuses and so on. Guildmate Darklighter came along for his first full run and is slotted in nicely with the group. Since it was a quick, easy run, we had time to follow up with a quick Taboro's Courtyard story mode. Thursday night had some unexpected withdrawals, so we pulled the pin. Apologies to Jace, who was the only one I forgot to tell that we had cancelled. I'm a jackass. For the time being, the Templars will be raiding Wednesday night AEST starting 8:30 p.m., and I'd like to open Thursday night as a gearing and alt night. If anyone, regardless of gear level, wants to come along for a fun raid Thursday nights, contact at GregCarter78 on Twitter or jump on the OotiniCast forums. And thank you guys, and sorry for the wall of text. Greg, humans. All right, and Tio, you have some guild happenings to report.
Just a few things. Our guildmate Mariah is starting a leveling group. It's a thread on the forums. We can see what she's got in mind. Just a couple of weekdays. If anyone wants to join up for flashpoints, heroic fours, that kind of thing. Now, she is an extremely experienced player and is really hoping to be able to pass on her knowledge if anyone is interested. So yeah, jump in that forum thread if you would like to join her on the Harbinger. Just wanted to mention again, Ferris Terran is doing some community building around our guild. Now, I've set it up so that he can actually tweet via @UtiniKnights and @UtiniRage, two Twitter accounts I created ages ago but didn't really use.
Right.
So he'll use those if you're in our guilds. Just follow them. And finally, best wishes to our guildmate Trev, who's been diagnosed with a medical condition which hopefully they can treat successfully. So wishing you the best, Trev.
Yeah. Okay, that'll bring us to the force feedback where we read out your tweets and emails. Malgadar writes, quote of the week 138. I can officially say that I have my guilds on farm. Teo informing us of Farmer Bear's inheritance. I think that's the first quote of the week that didn't originate from a host, but that email was the best.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. I saw several tweets about it later on that week, especially from Heather. So, Baradur, thank you so much for the pet. I thought the backdrop of Hoth and a Wampa suits him nicely.
I'll include that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Very blue.
The new astromech droid. So yeah, it does look different from the one you got if you're a subscriber. One of them has sort of a matte finish on top of his head, and the other one's shiny, so you might like one or the other. Also, they have different face plates, and also one's like one color, one's another. So I think one's blue and one's kind of yellow. Is that right? As I recall?
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. So there's some variability there. All right. And Jason B. wrote, full-size Sandcrawler races for the win. Yeah.
No argument. Yeah.
Thras wrote, anyone else notice with the latest cartel packs that Bioware is no longer offering the cheaper 160 cartel coin packs? I would rarely buy the 160 cartel coin packs, but it was a nice option to have if you had, say, 200 cartel coins left, burning a hole in your pocket.
Interesting. No, I didn't notice this. For the obvious reason. I don't buy packs, but... Yeah. Curious.
All right. Les wrote, gateway to the unfinished copy of Section X Zone in the northeast corner of the Belsavis map. Let's see. I need a Juggernaut to push, dueling, and Sorcerer for pulls. It's unfinished. Heroic area is not there. The terrain ends abruptly, and there are no mobs or NPCs. Republic and Imp bases are there, but they are completely empty. And thanks to Utopia, a guildmate of Les, and art at Darksplat for a pick.
Yep, and he also found a video where someone was wandering around there. So it seems that the whole Section X area was constructed as part of Belsavis. You can, and it's not easy to get in there, but you can actually do it. And when you get in there, it's the zone as more or less as it appears if you go to Section X proper. But yeah, it's completely devoid of anything. It's just empty. So maybe they intended that it would be accessible this way. It's part of Belsavis for reals. But because it was probably quite busy, they made it its own little mini zone, allowing them to shard it off onto the separate shards instances, so that the load would be spread appropriately and it wouldn't just bog down Belsavis proper.
Right. I assume that by now they could have, that it wouldn't matter at this point, but certainly at the beginning, I guess there would have been many hundreds of people going there. All right. And the YouTube link, I assume, is of them going to this funky zone?
Yep.
Cool. All right. The Bad Feeling Podcast wrote, Star Wars Galaxies is more sandbox, SWTOR is more linear. What does this mean?
Now, this is a great place to mention that in episode 139, which we published a few days ago, we had Chill's interview with Larry Everett at Shadow on Twitter, where he discussed all things RP in his capacity as the community manager of SWTOR-RP.com. Now, and in response to this question about SWG being a sandbox, SWTOR is linear, or a theme park, as they're referred, Larry actually responded. He said the biggest difference between a sandbox and a theme park in MMOs is one is a type of world that you live in, that's a sandbox, and the other is a place where you run quests or missions, that's a theme park. In a theme park, devs do everything for you. In a sandbox, devs give you the tools, basically to find your own fun. So that was a pretty succinct definition of when we talk about a sandbox, like EVE Online, or the way Star Wars Galaxies used to be before they changed it, and then obviously it's closed down. But they did try and make it more into a theme park, but originally it was a true sandbox. A true sandbox really shouldn't have levels at all. There's no real progression because you're just living in the world. There may be skills that you can learn and improve, but there's no levels to gain, no end game per se.
Right. All right.
And linear, it makes sense, right? Because linear means that you've got a set planetary progression. You have to go one planet to the next.
Right.
As you go through those planets, then that's where the leveling matters because you're leveling up as you go through those planets. And with the story-driven nature of this game, it's also a linear story. Yeah, you can make certain choices that affect the outcome to a certain degree, but you're driving towards the current state of the galaxy.
And most modern MMOs are a theme park in that regard. More or less, the developers are providing the entertainment, all of the content, the story-based, whatever, but it's all a progression, a journey, which is going somewhere, and they're continually giving you the places to visit on that journey, as opposed to in a sandbox, no destinations, you can go wherever you like, really, and the devs will just give you the basic tools, the world to inhabit, to live in.
Right.
Whereas theme park is somewhere you kind of visit.
Yep.
Do.
Yeah. So, right. So like Minecraft would be more of a sandbox. Not exactly an MMO necessarily, but it is more of a sandbox game.
Yeah.
And whereas, many other games where there's some sort of linear story would be more of the theme park style, regardless of whether you're an MMO or not.
Exactly.
But, yeah. All right. Grim wrote, just finished the Jedi Consular main story. It was good, but the Jedi Knight story is still the ultimate winner in my book.
Definitely.
If you're looking for epic, it's hard to beat Jedi Knight. So. All right. Jay Connell wrote in, I really like the Freaky Friday concept put forward by the Bad Feeling guys. I also touch on every aspect of the game, so finding a niche that I'm not already familiar with could be difficult. So instead of trying a different part of the game, I'd offer that a player could drastically alter their in-game habits. Here's my idea. Don't tune hop for an entire week. Focus on one tune and only that tune. Don't send it credits from your bank tune. Don't log on to alts to keep crafters rolling. They will still be there in a week, I promise. Focus entirely on that tune. Knock out a long overdue quest, a datacron hunt, seek random achievements. Whatever it is, stay on that tune. I know for me, that will be hard. My 2 cents.
Interesting. Let us know how you go with that, Jay.
Yeah, the Altaholics are cringing over here.
Yeah.
All right. I will say, though, I generally, at any one time, I'm usually kind of focusing on one character, and then the others are more or less dropped for a while, and then I get back to them. So I don't think that quite counts, but anyway. Jailcon also wrote in, this design is amazing, and it's a SWTOR Lego Old Republic design.
It's the XS Freighter, the smuggler
ship. Yeah.
So he put this onto ideas.lego.com as a potential project. What you have to do is, if you're interested, he found it on Lego's. He found it on ideas.lego.com. It is a Lego construction of the XS Freighter. And the idea with this is if enough people support it, it will be submitted for review by the Lego guys, and they may actually eventually produce it, as they have with a couple of other Old Republic things, as a box product for people to purchase. Cool. So if you're interested, I'll include the link. Go there. You have to sign up with lego.com and, add your vote. And
I don't know what a supporter means exactly or how many is good, but as of right now, the XS Freighter has 133 supporters and 362 days left. So I assume it started at 1 year, 365 days. Yes. And then, so in just a few days, 133 supporters. I guess that's good. I hope that's good. It's pretty cool. Actually, the design is really slick because not only does it really look accurate from the outside, but there's like some parts that flip up and you can see some of the interior as well. It has the whole, circular hallway and so on.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, the only thing I want to see is where's the page-by-page guide on how to build this thing. I'll totally duplicate it.
Well, I assumed that they would come up with that, but the part count on this would be 2,205 bricks, which, as if I
Wow.
remember from the many things that my son got, is a pretty good sized build. That's medium to large, I would say. Yeah, it looks really good too. Anyway,
Apparently requires 10,000 supporters to succeed. So we're a little short
ways to
so
go.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's only just going, so it's got a year.
Mm-hmm. All right. Justin wrote in, when I first started listening a year ago, you mentioned a web page where people posted pictures of their characters. What is the URL?
Yep, I've got no idea what we referred to a year ago because it's far too long, but tour-fashion.com is probably a
Right.
good place to post your stuff. And in fact, Chill is going to be talking to Exile, the
Yeah,
lady
I
who
need
runs the
to
site.
nail down an exact time, but
Mhm.
yes, that's the idea.
tour-fashion.com.
All right. Chaz Lobo wrote, got back from Disney. My 4-year-old and I have been fighting with lightsabers every day since. Hashtag raising them right.
Well done.
All right. At Fnord3125, I tried bounties for the first time. I didn't know kingpins couldn't be soloed. Do you need 2 or 4? Or how does the level match work in a group?
So first question is, how does a level match work in a group? Because when you trigger it, it will be a particular level yours.
Right.
But if you're in a group, anyone know what it does? If
I
you
don't
level
know.
disparity, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know actually.
Can they be soloed? Yes.
Maybe.
If you're reasonably well geared in only certain classes
If you
and have
are
a great
in a
companion.
if you're in a group when it spawns, it will spawn to the level of the highest person in your group.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That would
Okay,
make the most sense.
that makes sense. Yep.
Unfortunately, makes it rough if you're going with someone who's way higher than you.
Yeah,
You're
if
not
there's
gonna.
2 players with 2 companions, you can do it. I know I have done it. But yeah, a full group is ideal.
Okay.
I was actually totally able to solo him, but it was only on my tank characters with healer companions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And FNord3125 also writes, slot machines, strongholds, flagships. Do you think BioWare wants to suck serious amounts of credits out from the SWTOR economy? Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
These games always have to come up with credit sinks because otherwise inflation just goes kind of crazy. Because there's always people who, finish missions and quests and all that good stuff, and that basically just means credits coming from thin air. So, yeah. That's also why you get a little chunk taken out every time you sell something on the GTN, because it just helps to create a little bit of a credit sink. All right, Nathaniel Starr wrote, top 1,000 for ranked PvP leaderboards as of end of day, May 12th of 2014. And Guardian or Juggernaut, 186 at 18.6%.
Don't read them all, Chill.
Huh? Okay.
Don't read them all out.
All right.
So he's got the a breakdown of the various classes, and I guess what he really wants to point out is that commandos and mercenaries and gunslingers and snipers are extremely unrepresented in the top 1,000. Commandos max at 8%,
Right.
gunslingers snipers at 6.2%. The top representatives are guards and jugs at nearly 19%, and scoundrels and operatives, that's your healers, at 16.4%.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know how you would analyze that. I mean, maybe it does actually reflect the effectiveness of those various classes. In fact,
yeah.
maybe.
And you could certainly even make a better argument for it being the perceived effectiveness, because that also affects.
Indeed. Yeah, you're right.
The biggest thing that I take away from this that I find quite appealing at this time, last season, you would have seen Sentinels, Scoundrels, and Vanguards. And now you see Juggernauts, Operatives, and Sorks, or Guardian, Scoundrels, and Sage. So you've got 2 of those have changed since then. But again, the perception's a big deal too, because right now there's a lot of people playing Cirque and Sage. If you compare this against how many people total are playing, there's not Gunslinger's the least played, so it's at the bottom of the list. But at the same time, it's also at the bottom of the list because it's pretty rough for a Gunslinger in PvP right now. There's just no denying it. In arenas in particular, 8v8s they still have a real strong presence, but.
And this is ranked, so it's only arenas, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm not going to make any judgment calls on what this says about classes, but I am just quite pleased to see that there's a definite shift for who's in the top 3. That's much more interesting. And what's really nice is they're being much more proactive about class balance changes. They're coming in with every significant patch now. And that's fun, because that means every time a point patch comes out, class changes are happening, and these numbers will be shaken up. Balance is happening, and that makes the frequent class balance changes makes PvP more dynamically interesting, because it's adjusting and changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it'll also. Just one real quick is with an increase in the rate of change of classes, I think it will actually help people to stick to classes that they enjoy rather than classes that seem powerful at the moment, because it will help with the perception that that even if things are not super great for your character class right now, that they will eventually get better. So
well, tell that to all the sages and sorks, but yeah. Anyway, we are. I've marked a bunch to skip, so
yes,
let's just get through the rest. Yep.
So you go ahead and go down to Sparrow, correct?
Alright, so next email is from Sparrow. Woohoo! Just got my final piece of brutalizer for my Guardian. So sweet. Top Gear makes a hell of a difference, but I haven't been able to push over 1300 elo. I think I know why now. I usually don't pay much attention to the continual play-by-play narration of activities that scroll through the chat box. So I almost choked on my cold brew when, to my dismay, I read yesterday that I lost 15 elo for refusing a ranked match invite. What? Damn it. How long have I been leaving pop queues when I was in the middle of something more important? Or the horror of it all. I cried only a little while, and after my wife picked me up off the floor, I felt a little angry and quite cheated. Then ding, it hit me. Maybe I've been cheating my fellow PvPers. Boy, do I feel like a noob. Does a match start short of play when someone bails from a popped ranked queue? And how about unranked? Okay, so unranked, no. It should backfill. In ranked, there is no backfill. So, yes, you have effectively been screwing the team that you bailed on by not accepting the invite.
Right.
Every time.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, don't do that anymore. If you're actually going to queue up for ranked, there shouldn't be anything more important. And if there is, leave the queue. So.
I have actually been able to confirm, though, because this came up previously in the past. I have confirmed when we have had somebody in my group not come in, not accept their queue, and there's 3, I have noticed that my elo loss is definitely noticeably less.
Yeah.
Right.
What I'm hoping is that the person that quit early or didn't accept their queue gets hit for the full amount.
Right. Yeah, they have said that it was a reduced amount because you're playing 3v4, and that's never going to end well.
Yeah, they said that, and I just wanted to confirm, since I've been paying attention to those numbers. I have seen, and yes, it is a different amount.
Right. So, yeah.
All right. And finally, Devin wrote in, I have what I think might be an odd PvP question regarding class choice. Due to having repetitive stress injury, largely caused by using a mouse, it is probably no surprise that I use only arrow keys for movement, with abilities all hotkeyed for my left hand. Even with this limitation, I have been able to enjoy battleground-style PvP in most MMOs I've played over the years, and as a result, I tend to gravitate towards ranged classes that are more stationary. My question is whether a sniper gunslinger or commando merc are better for this playstyle in normal war zones.
Now, I did put this question to Laurie M as a PvP expert. She responded, I would lean towards a sniper gunslinger. Both are considered turret-style classes. But in her experience, a sniper, if initially positioned well, will be moving substantially less often. So there you go, Devon. Sniper or gunslinger.
I would tend to agree. Yep. Plus, snipers actually have benefits to being in one place and being in cover, both defensively and also in terms of not getting pushed back and so on. So.
It's also worth mentioning that if you play the dirty fighting tree on a gunslinger, you have massive amounts of mobility.
Which is not what
that
it
helps him, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right, that'll bring us to this Starlight Digest, where we go over the issues for 1,000 years.
Should we read that again, Chill?
Yes.
I can't edit that quickly.
I saw the TO to introduce, and I was worried whether I was supposed to say that or not. All right, so that'll bring us to the Starlight Digest, where we go over the issues for 1,000 years, or until we run out of time. And TO, why don't you go ahead and take this one?
All right, last week, @Mark_Swotor asked us if I can ever figure out what WTF you're supposed to actually do during these things. He's talking about war zones. I might not suck too bad at it. I don't know, we'll see. So from that, and a subsequent discussion, including Laurie M., she suggested we do a Warzone 101 segment, WZ 101. And so got in touch with Laurie M, and she introduced us to Ayita, who is a guildmate of hers. They play on the Shadowlands, and Red did an interview with Ayita a few days ago, and we have that recording now. What we're going to do is play it, one segment for each Warzone, and we're going to pause between so that we can add our fascinating insight, no doubt, or just embarrass silence, and we'll just move on. Alright, so let us start with Civil War.
I guess we'll start with Civil War, since that's the most basic one. Like, pretty much every game kind of has a game like Civil War. Essentially, there are 3 nodes, and your team has to take control of these nodes. You want 2 of the 3 nodes, obviously, to win. The nodes take 8 seconds to cap. Generally, like with the CC, like if you're node guarding, say if you're by yourself at a node and you're new to the game, a lot of times a stealth will come up and sap you, and then immediately the stealth will start capping to freak the person out. And that person, if they're not very familiar with Resolve and CC and they're new to PvP, they will break that CC. And then immediately the stealth will use their flashbang, which is another 8-second CC, or resap them again, and then they will have to eat it because their CC break is on a 2-minute cooldown. So they will sit there and eat all 8 seconds of that CC, and they will go back to capping that node. That node takes 8 seconds to cap, so they will have just enough time, if they're good, to cap that node, and they won't even have to touch you. And then your whole team gets mad at you, you didn't call out, got sat up. That's the first lesson I learned, I think, PvPing. When there's a stealther coming at you, don't break the first stun. Generally, it's not a good. You try to hold on to it. That's good for that one. It only takes one person to cap a node. Unlike Novair, multiple people can cap it. So a lot of times, I see a lot of pugs. They'll all try to cap it, and then there's only one bad guy coming to throw some grenade to stop the cap, and there's 5 people capping it when it only takes one, so one person can cap and everyone else can try to CC or push back the guy who's trying to stop the cap. I notice a lot of pugs all just try to cap at the same time, and it's just kind of silly. It doesn't really matter most of the time. I mean, you just try to control 2 to 3 nodes, and at a certain point, it'll count down the score. If your score is double the other team's score, you can hold on to 1 node instead of 2 nodes to achieve a victory still.
Which 2 nodes do you prefer to hold? Do you prefer to hold like middle left, middle right, both the sides?
Before they fix the speeders, I like to go for the sides. For Civil War, it doesn't matter as much to me, but if you have like a good person, like if you're grouped with someone who's good at 1v1ing, I like to send them to the other team's node and try to steal it. I think most people usually will put 2 people at your home node, and for the Republic side, I know that's grass generally.
Oh shoot. Sorry. Oh, sorry, I'll try and get back to where we were. That was my mistake.
Okay, that was not the end of it, was it?
No.
Not quite. It was close.
Yeah. How far in were we? It was about 2.
Usually we'll put 2 people at your home node, and for the Republic side, I know that's grass generally, and then for the Imperial side, your home node is snow. Why that is, I guess, the way the map's shaped. And then everyone else tends to go mid. I would say if you're new at the game, you're probably not the best at 1v1ing. So if you're new, it's better just to stick with groups of people instead of isolate yourself all the time. Get some help from your buddies, I guess. Stick around your healer and your tanks and stuff. I mean, I guess just if you're new, I would just go mid and get like your own node, not fish at the other team's node.
Okay, so that's Civil War. Any comments on what Ayuda was saying?
Yeah, those are all the good basics for it. I think she did a good job of summarizing it. This one and Novar Coast, I feel, are because it's basically an open map. You can go where you wish, whenever you wish. Ancient Hypergate to a lesser extent, but they're all in any. I mean, obviously there's going to be matches where it's a wipeout one way or the other, but any time that it's relatively close, it becomes very important whenever possible to keep more of them busy with just you yourself. Like, or if you have a partner, if there's 2 of you, if you can keep 3 or 4 or 5 of them busy, that's a major advantage. So if you have like a lot of survivability, or you're good with line of sighting, or you're an excellent healer, or you're a good enough damager that you can burst them down, or at least one of them down, and keep them busy that way, it makes a major help because taking away a node once it's captured is difficult, and a lot of times there's not that many transfers of power during the match. It usually happens a few times at most. So yeah, if you can keep them busy, if you're you by yourself, if you're a sneaker, and you can keep like 2 of them busy at their node trying to defend their node, that means the rest of the map is now a 7-on-6. So that helps a lot with your teammates. So anytime you can do anything like that, that's a major advantage. And the other thing is that because it is a little bit easier to capture it at first. I mean, technically it's not. I mean, the amount of time it takes is the same and so on. But just because it's the beginning of the match and people will be going towards their natural node and so on, and mostly rushing the middle, it's important that that someone get your natural node and get it capped right away. There's a surprising amount of matches where the outside nodes get captured, but the middle one does not, right, either for the whole match or for a good chunk of the match. And if you get your side captured first and that starts ticking down before theirs starts ticking down, that guarantees that they have to capture the mid or sneak yours at some point, or they will lose. Because if it stays neutral the whole time and you captured yours first, you will eventually win.
All right, some comments from Laurie in the chat. Firstly, she says, just to clarify what you mean, what was meant by snow and grass, these are the 2 turrets on either end of the map, the left and right, as you come out of your spawn area. One of them is
actually is covered in snow. Yeah.
The other is no snow, it's just grass. So that's when we say that, we mean the end turrets. Right. And the other comment was really, really good advice. Do not get dragged off a node. If you are guarding that node, trying to prevent another player coming to cap it, the worst thing you can do is follow them. If they attack you and then move away, if you then follow them, you can guarantee that they have a friend who is stealthing and will then immediately start casting as soon as you're out of the way, right, and will probably cap it underneath you. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, don't do that. Stay on the node. Fight on the node is usually really good advice.
And call incoming enemies as soon as you see them.
Yep. And as JD said, Gadok Teague of the Unnamed Swordle podcast, communicate. That's the secret to winning a civil war.
Right, and it also helps not to just to call incoming, but to call the amount, because otherwise it's too easy for 5 or 6 of your team to come when there's only need for maybe 1 or 2 of them, and that would actually pretty much guarantee that the mid gets lost. For instance, if you're all pulling it towards if you're on grass and you're all pulling all your team towards grass, then all of a sudden mid is free and then it gets capped. So.
Always caveat it though. Say ink 1 plus. Because you never know if they're coming with a stealther. So say 1 plus, or 2 plus, or 3 plus. Like, put the number of the how many you see, but expect that there might be a stealther with them.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, let's continue. Nova Coast.
Alderaan being the most basic, it seems pretty simple. You go for Nova Coast next, which is very similar to Alderaan.
Yeah, Nova Coast is similar. The map's a little bit bigger. There's, a central node, which is south, and there's east and west. Instead of, like, Civil War, where one person caps the node, there's bunkers. Your team clicks on the button in the middle, and they can all help cap the node faster. So you can kind of sneak in and get caps in little by little. It doesn't immediately start counting towards it. You have to hold it a little bit for it to take in consideration that you're actually capping the node. But a lot of times the whole team will be fighting, and I play a stealth class, so I'll sneak in and I'll get in the corner, and it helps that I'm body type 1 probably, that I can sit in the corner and just start capping in the corner, and you can actually cap it and no one will notice you, but that doesn't work that much. So you try to clear out their team, push them back, or CC if there's just like 1 or 2 stragglers still left, and cap the node. And it's really good on actually Civil War and Alderaan. You really don't want to overcompensate. By what I mean with that, if there's only one guy hitting up, east, and your team is defending east, someone says 1 east, you don't need 7 people to kill that one guy. You want to have the appropriate amount of people. South, if you have south, doesn't get bombarded, and everyone's gone at east for 1 guy, and then they end up taking your node. So it's really good to have situational awareness and understand where you need to be in every single war zone.
Now, here's a question for you. Like, usually I'm queued with 1 person. So we'll go in and we'll leave out the southern exit, but then we'll bolt straight towards where the increased damage and speed run is. One of us will grab the speed run, one of us will grab the increased damage, and then hit the right-hand side, because if they only sent 1 person to the right-hand side, that sprint gives you enough time to get there to stop them from capping it. And if there's 2 of us, we can usually take them out and then take the east. Are we wasting our time, and should we be helping south?
If your team is strong, that's fine. I've seen it work a lot, and I've seen it fail a lot. One thing we used to say in one of my old guilds was risk big, win big. And that's what we would do. Like, they would just call it that strategy. I don't know why. They would say, let's do risk big, win big. So they would send 2 people over to their node. And if you're an experienced player, you're probably better than the person who's guarding, because usually the person who's guarding, I've noticed in every war zone, is one of the other team's worst players. They're usually just ignorant about stuff, and they're probably new. Like, when I first started PvPing, I started to node guard because I didn't really know what I was doing. If you kind of have an idea of what you're doing, you know what you're going up against. If you're better, I would say it's less risky to go for the other person's node, and a lot of times it works. The only thing I don't like about that strategy, it's really, really, really hard to hold the other team's node, because they spawn out and they can get back and help out a lot faster at their own node. You kind of have to have a better team, I think, to do that. But it depends. Like, everything is, if their team is positioned not at their node, it's probably a better idea to take that node. But I just noticed your base is really, really far away. So if your team dies, they have to run a lot farther to go help reinforce it. When they die, they only have to run a little bit to reinforce it. So it's hard to hold that node. And I don't like going after that node if it's really competitive. So I actually get really frustrated at people like, why are we going for their node? We can't even hold south. If you can't even hold south, you're probably not going to hold their node at all. So if you do, it's going to be very short-lived.
Red, did you want to mention what Laurie said?
Yeah, actually, the one thing that I definitely would agree that it didn't come up in our conversation. The button that you click, because multiple people can click on that button and you can turn the location faster. Don't stand on the damn button. For the love of God, stand to the side. Because if your body's in the way, your teammates are going to have a beast of a time trying to click on that button.
Yep.
Stand to the side, or like she said, wedge your body up in the corner if you're going to be inside. You can stand out front, and if you look at the ground, there's actually stones that make a half circle. That's the range that you need to be inside of to click on that button. But give line of sight to people so that they can at least change their camera angle or something. If you're standing on the button, you're getting in the way.
Right. If you're at south, for instance, this is usually where this helps the most, and it's, let's say you're holding it, if it's one of those big fights where maybe their healers are trying to take some time off to try to get some clicks in, then do stand in front of it and prevent them from capping it, because it makes it harder for them to click on it too.
Yeah, this is where my body type 1 characters really don't help me. Yeah.
Right. I'd say as far as sending 2 people at the beginning, for me that kind of wrecks the, make sure you're keeping more people busy with you rule, because now you've pretty much guaranteed, unless they do something weird, that for their 1 in 7 situation, that it's now 7 on 6 at South, or actually 5, since you'll probably also have someone on West.
Yeah.
So unless those 5 are really good, you're probably gonna run into problems. I mean, it can work, of course, but unless you know that you have like some real good tanks and healers that are gonna keep them all busy at South while you while you cap East, then I would say it's a pretty risky move. What might work better is, because I tend to agree that it usually is someone who's a little less experienced guarding nodes, and it often is just the one person. Take someone who can really wreck, someone who's a really good DPSer, maybe a stealther also, and send that person to East, and have them one-on-one them, take them out, and hopefully cap it. And at the very least, that will guarantee that 2 or 3 of the enemy come to take it back or try to hold it or whatever. But I would only do 2 if I knew that the rest of my team were not just going to get wiped out and just let them have South instantly.
All right, let's talk about the Hypergate.
I'm going to ask you about my least favorite one so you can tell me how I should be playing it. Ancient Hypergate.
Ancient Hypergate, okay. This one can be really, really frustrating at times. It's the most simplistic, but it's deceptively complicated, sort of. Essentially, there are 2 nodes, and there's this big pylon detonation, and it goes off and everything explodes. And you have to seek protection in the middle, so everyone funnels in the middle for this sort of like team deathmatch craziness, and everything gets really laggy in there for me all the time. Essentially, how it works is you get points based off of kills and gathering orbs. And there is a multiplier for what is worth on the side of your scoreboard. So it'll say ×5, ×6, ×7, etc. So the first round, I notice a lot of times if you have a really, really bad first round, pugs will leave. They're like, oh, this team's garbage. They leave. But the first round really doesn't matter that much because the multiplier keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes you can just win by the last round. You can kind of be doing terrible in the last round, really get it together, and still win. So it's really frustrating sometimes when you're on the end where you're doing really, really well, and then you lose at the end. But basically, it's kind of a team deathmatch, so it makes it simple, but you have to be really, really, really smart about it. The pylons, at the very beginning, you'll notice at the beginning where your team's going. The Republic side tends to have their natural node. The Imperial side tends to have their natural node, and everyone goes to that generally, like one person will cap it, and everyone floods mid. Every time you get a kill, you'll get, 5 points if the multiplier is 5, 6 points if the multiplier is 6. Every time you gather an orb takes a few seconds to cap. I'm not sure, like 6 seconds to cap. And if you gather an orb, you have to gather the orb and take it back all the way to your pylon and then come back. And then those are actually worth double the amount of kills. So if the multiplier is 5, the orb is actually worth 10 points. So orbs can be important, but I notice a lot of new people place too much importance in the orbs because they will gather an orb and they'll just kind of CC themselves for a really long time trying to get that orb when their team's getting crushed in mid, and they'll have like 2 or 3 people go get orbs and their team just gets crushed in mid. It doesn't end up helping out. You really want to do that when middle is clear and it's safe to get the orbs, generally. Rule of thumb. Not necessarily, but that's a rule of thumb for me.
So duke it out. Kill everybody, then worry about the orbs.
Pretty much, yes. That's the way I like to do it anyways. As far as like positioning goes, PvP, LOS, positioning, CC, like the most important thing about PvP. It's really, really hard to be a melee class in Ancient Hypergates, I've noticed, especially with all the buffs to ranged classes. So you're going out there, and I mean, I'll be on my Marauder, and I'll just get blown up with cooldowns on. It's just, I'll have 3 mercs tracer missiling me, and just I poofed. So you have to be really, really careful. I'm starting to scoot myself really far back with the range, because someone on their team, usually like one of their melee, will overextend over to your side, and then when they do that, they will get blown up. So you kind of really, it sounds really cliche and dumb, but you really want to play as a team. I always get so frustrated when someone tries to go be a hero, go over on their side, they overextend. You really can't afford to overextend in Ancient Hypergates if it's competitive whatsoever. You really want to stay back and stick with your team. And I used to think I was a Marauder, had all these cooldowns, I would be indestructible, even on like a tank. I mean, sometimes you can't just keep charging out there, overextending, because the way it works, it just kind of funnels everyone in there, and you can just disintegrate in a second. With really close games, there's been games that have been tied that I've played. There's been games where we've won by 3 points or lost by 3 points. So, I mean, you kind of get frustrated when you see someone who's died 10 times and everyone else only died 2 or 3, and it's like, because they're just going off. People always say don't feed them kills. That means don't go over to their side, get double teamed on. Like, it's really hard to 2v1, even if you're really good. You don't want to go over there, and they have more numbers, and you just die, and then that gives them more points. It's more rare to have close games. What happens more than often is someone will cap your node. The other half of Ancient Hypergate is you still have a node, and you still have to defend it, just like Civil War and Novair. Except with Ancient Hypergates, what makes it different, instead of it taking 8 seconds to cap it, it only takes 6 seconds. It makes it really, really, really easy for a stealther to steal your node. So if you're solo guarding it, I notice a lot of people will stand right on top of the node, and it's usually not the best idea, because let's just say you're guarding a node in Ancient Hypergate. Stealther comes along, they sap you, and then they come out of stealth, and you're sitting right on top of the node, so they just come out of stealth. They're conveniently placed right on top of the node. They start capping it. Well, as I said, saps, flashbang, concussion missile, whirlwind, they're all 8-second CCs. The node only takes 6 seconds to cap.
Is it better for ranged to defend them?
There are classes that are better for defending. I mean, an assassin obviously is notorious for being a really good node guarder, because they're in stealth, because usually if you're a stealth, it's hard for a stealth to see you, to sap cap you, and then they have phase blocks. And then snipers can see stealth, sorks have their barrier, which is an extra CC break. So everyone has the potential to guard a node. There's just some that are better than others. I like snipers guarding because they can sit really far away from the node. Knights have their leap. Operative scoundrels have their roll to get closer. Assassins have force speed. I mean, pretty much everyone can get away and get back in if they need to, even if they're melee. For guarding the node in that one is a little bit trickier. If there's 2 stealth, there's really nothing you can do, probably. With that one, you want to sit away from the node. So if a stealth saps you, you can wait for the sap to wear off. You want to be basically 2 seconds walking distance away from the node. When they sap, they can't just immediately start capping the node, because it's only a 6-second cap. And if you break the CC and stop them, they'll just flashbang you, or they can re-stealth out and stop you again. I mean, that happens a lot. It's not nearly as bad as when it first came out, but you can really take advantage of people on that one. And it's still really tricky to guard the node in that one. That happens a lot. And then when your node gets capped, every single point that you earned that round goes to the other team. So your team gets really frustrated at you. And you can still win if that happens to you early on, but it's just tough. But if it happens later on, I could be losing a Hypergate the entire time, and then at the very, very end, my team will cap both nodes, and we end up winning because it's so many points at the last round anyways. And you can just win by just side capping at the very last second, even though the team was crushing you the whole time. So that one's frustrating sometimes, but sometimes it's awesome if it goes in your favor.
Okay. Any comments on that? It's pretty detailed.
Yeah, the point system is a little confusing at first, because you're sort of gathering points until the actual explosions, and then they actually count after that. And that's why when you capture a node, the amount of points swings quite a bit. So But on the other hand, if you've actually captured a node and someone gets a kill, those points are actually immediately counted towards your total. So don't worry too much about the points. Just do your best to fight near your buddies at first. Cap an orb when it makes sense, and guard your node. And maybe try to take the opponent's node if you can.
Yeah.
So, and you can work out the details later. So, I do like having a gunslinger as a node guardian. You can stand way far away, right around near the outside of that big circle, and also. Because it's a 6-second cast, everyone, as soon as you hit 5 seconds on the timer, you can just run in if they're not already capping it by then there's no way for them to cap it. So you take that, plus hunker down, which I believe is 20 seconds, as I recall. And what that does is it guarantees that you're not going to get sapped or CC'd, so the only way for them to stop you once you've hunkered down at your 25-second mark is for them to kill you. So as long as you're alive and hitting whoever, it does maybe try to cap it with some sort of ranged ability, you can guarantee that you're going to hold that node. So that's actually a really good way for one class to do it.
Okay. Next, let's talk about Void Star.
So Void Star, this is traditionally my least favorite till Ancient Hypergate came out, and now it's actually maybe my second favorite.
Oh, Void Star's my favorite. I like this one. Void Star, basically you will be an attacker or a defender. It'll say pretty blatantly if you're attacking or defending. There are kind of a west door and an east door, and you have to plant a bomb on one of the doors. And the bombs take 8 seconds to plant, and they take 20 seconds to detonate. So during this 20 seconds that they detonate, the other team can defuse them. It's really, really, really hard, but sometimes people don't pay attention. And it only takes 3 seconds to defuse. So basically, you just kind of brawl it out. If you're attacking, you try to kill everybody, and then they'll get a door. And you try to get everyone stuck inside that door dead. So you have 8 seconds to cap. Sometimes you won't have exactly 8 seconds to cap, but when they start flooding out of the door, you can knock them back, you can CC them, you keep them from immediately turning around the corner and stopping a cap. But once you have it capped, you have to guard it for 20 seconds to keep them from defusing. So a lot of people will place their orbital strikes, freighter flybys, their force storms, all their AoEs, and just guard it with that until it finally blows up. And when it blows up, you will continue to the next room. In the next room, there is a bridge. You cap tap. The first door is kind of harder, I think, to hold than the next door because there's more of a separation, a gap to switch sides. So, I think it's usually safer to drop 2 people at a door just in case. And, it's really good. You have to be really, really fast at your call-outs. So, usually if I guard, there's like 2 poles that are beside the door. You can kind of hide behind those. Those are like the only LOS that you probably have in that map, which I don't really care for. But just hang out by one of those poles and try to call out early. But I don't know. A lot of people don't call out early. I guess with all these, if you're ever guarding and you're new, you don't want to call when someone's attacking. If you can visibly see someone coming at you, just go ahead and call one. And usually there's a stealth with them, so that's why you want to call if you see them. But if it's a stealth, obviously you can't call until they're on you, so it's more difficult. I've had a lot of people get capped on by a jug. They're not even invisible. You could see them from 30 meters away. You didn't say anything. And then a lot of people say, why didn't you call? I'm stunned. I was like, well, is your keyboard stunned? Can you not type? So I don't know, even if you type random letters or something. But anyways, another set was a bridge. There's another set of doors. And you keep going on and on and on until you get to the data core. And you try to get as close to the data core as you can when you're attacking. When you're defending, you just, try to keep them from planning. So whichever team gets closest to the data core wins, essentially, for that one.
So do you still do that strategy that I used to remember back in the day where you just tell the stealthers to go one direction and everyone else to go the other?
If I'm just playing complete with pugs, I don't really try to do strats. But if I'm with, a group of people that I know and they're my team, sometimes if they're a stealth and they're healing, it doesn't work out quite as well. I usually don't like to send operative healers to go on the opposite side where no one is at and no one's taking damage. But sometimes it works, though. If you can get someone to use their CC breaker early and then stun them. I think it's harder for that one. I don't get as lucky on that one, at least my personal experience. But you can do that if you want. A A lot of times you cap the door and there's people right in front of you and they just don't turn around and look to stop you. So if you're really sneaky, try to pop up behind someone and cap. And there's a lot of bad players out there that don't turn around and look. Try it that way.
Okay.
A lot of good stuff on there.
The biggest thing I would want to call out from the chat room just right away is that when transitioning between doors or bridges or the energy gates or whatever, as you move from location to location, if one of your teammates is already ahead of you, focus on slowing down the other team. You're not trying to kill them. Slow them, AoE stun them if you can, do whatever you can to hold them as they're trying to get through a tunnel. Because if none of them can get through those tunnels, then your teammate who's ahead can get the bridge down. Right. And then since you haven't killed them, they're not waiting for your teammate as they go running across the bridge, and then they can place a bomb. And you're just slowing them down. Because killing them lets them get ahead to defend. If you just slow, entangle, root, stun, but don't kill, your teammate's going to be able to go all the way to the core.
Right.
I mean, it's that simple.
A good time to use your AoE CC is just as the door breaks, because often the team that was having the most success at that door basically will all be bunched up there ready to rock and roll through that door, and if you mez them or CC them or even just slow them, it can mean a big difference into what happens going on at the other side of that hallway. Also, both doors open at the same time, so if you res but run to the opposite side, sometimes you can get a free run with nobody trying to CC you or kill you, and you can get to the other end a lot quicker that way as well.
Any more comments?
The open bridge after the second feature, before the next set of big doors, if you fall into that, you die, and that's a lot of fun to knock people into. If you have a harpoon or whatever, and you're real quick, and someone's knocked you into the pit, you can pull them in with you. It's hard, but it can be done. And it's just there's nothing quite as satisfying as doing a one-shot kill on someone, with a simple knockback ability.
Yeah. All right. My personal not favorite. Let's talk about classic hutball.
You can tell that I organized this interview because my favorite was saved for last.
Nice.
All right, so we got Hutball 1 and 2.
So I guess everyone's kind of familiar with the first one. That's Narshadal. And the new one is Quesh. It's essentially like a capture the flag, I guess, except it's a hutball. You have two teams, Rotworms and Frog Dog. The ball's right in the middle. So everyone rushes. They use your speed boost, force speed, predation, transcendence, whatever that's on the pub side. You rush to get to the ball first, and it's actually pretty important to get the ball first because a lot of the scores are whoever gets the ball first, I've noticed. And once you get the ball, generally there are people that are better ball carriers, such as tanks or people with leaps. Usually don't want a sword carrying a ball that just explodes. I mean, it's not unheard of. If you gotta pass it, pass it. There are better ball carriers, and usually the fastest person will go get the ball first. And generally that was an operative. It still kind of is, but they fixed the rule. So you can't just speed roll to it. But you try to get the fastest person to grab the ball and at least pass it to a tank if you can. If you do have a tank on your team, I like to mark them with little shields so you can pass it to them. And that person will try to carry the ball over these acid pits, fire trap. It's all different layers. There's a bottom floor, and there's basically 3 floors. And you just try to score it in the other team's end zone. One of the trickiest things are the fire pits. If you get the ball from middle, you will have to pass 2 fire pits to get to the end zone, so you can't just simply walk it there, because if you walk over the fire pit, it does a whole bunch of damage. Someone can stun you on top of it, and you just burst in flames and die, and the other team gets the ball. So you have to be really careful about passing those things. That's why I try to pass the ball over those, or there's better times to get through those. Like if you're white barred, which means you're immune to CC. The bar over your head is completely solid white. You're immune to CC. Generally, you can try to walk across those fire pits and no one can CC you over top of them. But it does not make you immune to roots. so someone can still route you over those. So if you have like hold the line or hydraulic overrides, you can walk past it if you're white barred. But generally, it's probably better to pass. So you don't want to just team deathmatch on that one. That one's probably the most objective based out of every single one of the war zones the hut balls are. So it's good to have teamwork and coordination. If you're a tank and you don't have the ball and someone else does, put a guard on them so they, don't blow up as fast, or, use your taunts. Obviously the healer needs to heal the ball carrier because everyone's trying to kill that person. But you want to get ahead. Leaps are really nice. If you're on the bottom floor, if you want to jump up to the top floor. If you're a power tech or a vanguard, you have your pulls. Or if you're an assassin tank, you have a pull. You have phase walk as an assassin, so if you want to get ahead, you can use your phase walk to get in a really cool position to pass the ball to where no one's at. If you're a sork, you can get ahead, or a sage, and use your friendly pull and pull someone who's about to die out of the fire, or pull someone ahead closer to the goal line. So you can use a lot of your utility skills in Hutball and make use of those. I play an operative, so a lot of times I'll use my roll to get past those fire pits really quickly. It's still kind of iffy. A lot of times it works. I'll just have the ball and just zip across it. But that one is just, it's not really about damage. I always get frustrated because a lot of people will go off in a corner and battle and do nothing. And people just don't get in front. But you have to pass and, just work as a team for that one. Be careful of the traps. Use your utility.
Okay. Anything on that, or shall we go straight on to Wesh?
I'm good.
A quick note. There's a lot of beautiful abilities. There are, however, some abilities that will not let you hold on to the hut ball. So if you go into stealth, you'll drop the hut ball. If you use force and vulnerability on your sage or sorcerer, you'll drop the hut ball. And if you phase walk, you'll drop the hut ball. But the leaps and the pulls are all great. The force sprint is great. The rolls from the smugglers and the agents are all good. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can use to move the ball along as well with your abilities. But yeah, there are a few that will make you simply make the ball go neutral.
Right. All right. Now let's talk about the new Hutball Quesh.
How much different do you find the new hut ball from this one?
I feel like it's a lot different, the layout. It's pretty much just an open range. There's nothing to hide behind, no LOS. So like snipers, sorks, they can just perch up on top of these pipes and these grates and just look down on you and eat you up. And there's not much you can do except for drop down. The new hut ball, it's basically 3 stacked platforms. The top platform is goal lines, I guess. It's also your spawn areas. So your spawn area is on one side, and that's where the other team is trying to score the ball. The other team's spawn area is straight across yours, and that's where you are trying to score your ball. Instead of the ball being in the middle, it's at the very bottom. So you start off on the very top floor. There's a second floor, and then there's the very ground floor, and that's in the middle. That's where the ball is located. And everyone tries to fall down and grab that ball. Instead of fire pits, there's these acid traps where acid comes spewing out. The same concept with the acid traps as fire. Just don't get stuck in them with the ball. You got to be careful, and you want to pass across it instead.
Well, the acid pads actually slow as well.
Yeah, they do slow. They're kind of tricky, to see where they're at exactly. I have trouble figuring out exactly if I'm on the ramp where the acid will actually hit me at still. It's still kind of confusing. I wish they'd clear that up a little bit. But it's really important for both hut balls. Everyone says you want to control mid. 'Cause a lot of times, the other team will just grab the ball first, and then once they have it, if they have a lot of healers and tanks, they'll never die, and they'll just eventually score the ball. So it's really important to try to control mid, grab the ball first for your team, and hold it and pass it. Even, if you're a sork or a sniper and you're not a great ball carrier, if you're in the middle and no one else is, you need to pick up the ball. Even if you have just a little bit of health, maybe you can pick it up and try to pass it to someone who does. It's just really, really important to do that. So I've seen people just stand there and fight right next to the ball and not pick it up. all the time. It's frustrating.
As you're trying to run over to it, and you're like, why the hell isn't this idiot picking it up?
Yeah. You're just standing right beside it, master striking somebody or ravaging someone. And, the other team's junk tank grabs the ball, so they have the best ball carrier in the game. With the ball, they don't die, and they can bounce around like a bunny rabbit to the top. It's frustrating. But instead of it being linear, like the first hub ball, it's more like vertical, I guess. So you go bottom to top instead, and you go up these ramps. And on the sides, there are these little blue tables, and you can click on them, and they will attach you to some rope, and you'll go all the way to the middle platform if you want to not wait for the acid pits and go up the sides. And it's more efficient, it's faster. It takes 2 seconds to cast, and you can go up to the middle floor. But from the middle floor to the top floor, you just actually have to walk up the sides and score it. And it's a lot harder to get a score in that one since they're spawning out, I guess, right by the goal line for that one. Well, I guess they both do, but I feel like it's harder in that one. Just if you just end up killing everybody, everyone will just die and they'll come out, and then they'll be ready to defend against you guys scoring a lot.
All right.
So the only comment that I wanted to make was, in particular, for both hut ball maps, if you have the ball and you're knocked somewhere that is not advantageous for scoring, spin your camera angle, look up. There are likely people above you that you can pass to, no matter which map you're on, that are going to be better positioned to take the ball in and score than yourself. Pass it to them. And also, always remember, the pass, double tap your pass button. Whatever you have it hotkeyed to, or if you want to be clicking it, double tap it, and it will center it to whomever you have selected.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I've got to say.
Right, and pass the hut ball is an ability that you will not have at all until you get into your first hut ball match. Then, just like when you get any other ability, if there's an open slot on your bars, it'll put it in there. But it might be in a weird spot, so you might want to move it around. And if your bar's already full, you'll need to look through your book and grab it real quick before the actual match. But yeah, you definitely need to be able to throw the ball, because otherwise someone eventually will throw it to you. And if you have no way to get rid of it, yeah, you're pretty much a target at that point.
All right. We just have a... Sorry.
Yeah, and I was going to say, as far as the differences between the first and the second one, the first one is a little bit more likely that if you come across a really well coordinated team, that they're just gonna slaughter you 6-0. The reason being that there's no real true line of sight, so you can actually set it up with 2 or 3 people basically ready to throw it to each other, and they can go from the middle all the way to the end zone literally within seconds. With the newer map, the line of sight is more complete, and even though it would only really take a couple of throws, it would also take, in addition to those throws, some actual movement and getting in the right spot to throw it to the next guy, and it takes a little bit longer. And because of that, I feel it gives you a little bit better chance against some of those better coordinated and sometimes better geared teams. Also on the newer map, because of the way it's set up, where the bottom is where the ball starts in the whole middle, and then the upper 2 spots are where the actual goals are scored. If you fumble it, in other words, if it gets turned over to the other side, when you're on the upper reaches, it's a much shorter distance for them to go to score themselves. So it definitely punishes you if you lose the ball and turn it over to them. So it feels very different when you play the two, and I like them both, but I think I like the new one a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. At the end of the day, the execution, I think they took a lot of what they wanted for various PvP maps, and with this new Hutball map, I think they combined a lot of very positive aspects of the different game maps and made a really cool addition to what we had from Hutball in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We just got a little bit more advice from Aida.
So that's each of the maps. Was there anything else you wanted to say about PvP for people that don't know much about PvP?
I guess it's really important to have gear. It's really easy to get max expertise in gear. You don't have to PvP for hours on end or days. You can just simply get cheap level 53 greens or blues or whatever. You just can't wear the highest high-end PvE gear in there. It'll suck you down. You can just wear like okay, moderate. Like my friend, he just came back and he was in old, was it Battle Master gear? So his bolstering was all messed up. So we all just spent like 10K or something. Got like each of us bought him like 2 really cheap pieces off the Galactic Trade Market. Gave it to him, and he was at max expertise. I mean, it's almost silly not to go in there with decent expertise because it's so easy to get gear and it's so cheap. You can use planetary comms or just use old gear if you played a long time ago that's PvE, just anything to get 2018. That's the maximum expertise for that one. And then also for that, you don't want to mix and match mods. You don't want some, like your headpiece to have a PvE armoring and a PvP mod. That doesn't work. That messes up your bolstering as well. You don't want to mix and match mods.
So be all PvE or all PvP. Don't be half and half.
Well, I guess if you want a PvP headpiece, every single mod has to be PvE. But if your chest piece is all PvP, that's okay. You just don't want the same piece to have mix and matched mods. So yeah, within a piece, you don't want to mix and match. And then just augmenting is probably the biggest jump I think you can get is you just augment your gear. It's really important to have good gear. If you're new at PvP and you have terrible expertise, you're just going to think you're a terrible player and you're not going to enjoy yourself. And, you know, you'll want to quit if you have just terrible gear because it really makes a difference if you have 1,600 expertise compared to someone who has 2,018. So just get a little bit of gear. It doesn't take that much effort.
Okay. Now, thank you very much to Laurie M and Aita for helping us explain war zones. Now, Laurie M has created a closed Facebook group for Shadowlands PvP for their little community. People are welcome to join. I'll include a link to it in the show notes. It is a closed group, so you'll have to ask for access, and they talk about all kinds of stuff apparently, and even PvEs are welcome. Imagine that. Obviously mainly for the Shadowlands, but if you're after some advice on PvP from Aita or Laurie, that's probably a good place to go.
All right. Yep, and what she says about the expertise gear is right. I mean, they have the gear is getting better, but the amount of expertise per piece is actually the same. So, as long as you're getting PvP gear of any level, you can get up to the expertise cap relatively quickly, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Are we still live or no?
Yep. Okay.
You can use it to wrap up.
All right, that's a show. If you'd like to play with us in the Ootini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our
Ootini Rage
Guild on the Empire side, do a /C join Ootini to join the Ootini channel. Then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter. We're on @OotiniCast. I Twitter under my own name @Brandon L. Starr, and Tio uses his name @Jason Etheridge. Red Twitter's under @R3DN4, or you can watch him on twitch.tv/R3DN4. Check out our website, OotiniCast.com, which has links to our presence on Google Plus and Facebook. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, and we're also on Stitcher. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. And thank you to the chat room, and thank you, Red.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.
Alright guys, stop your recording now. Chat room, thank you very much for joining us today. That went longer than I had hoped.
I'm looking forward to Suvada.
Indeed, me too.
It should be fun, yeah.
Yep, we've got the interview with Ufalong that Red did a week or two back, coming this coming Monday, and regular show next week. So, we'll have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.